Greetings, mortals, and welcome. Please present your tickets for validation. Thank you. Your existence has been acknowledged, and you have been granted access every Thursday and Friday. You will be accompanying your guides, Krista and Brandi, along with their world-renowned guest. They will be exploring an intriguing tendril of what humans refer to as reality each week, as they strive to advance you further down the path to the truths of your physical earth and what lies on the other side. Remember to please keep your hands and feet in the vehicle at all times, and do not exit until the craft has come to a complete stop. Greetings, mortals.
Greetings. Happy
Well,
freaking Friday.
yeah, right? Happy freaking Friday and almost Merry Christmas, man. We've got the whole family coming in tomorrow, and we're having dinner and presents and fire outside and s'mores and doing the whole 9 yards. So I went and, took care of my reindeer last night, and Dasher and Dancer on injured reserve. So we're good to go on there. But,
All right.
But we get, real quick before we bring our guest of honor up, I want to go over the conference real quick we've got coming up in September of 2025. So,
yes. I'm like,
hi, Bryan. We see you.
hi.
He's backstage.
It's like, yeah, we see you. We see you. All right. Well, let's just talk about the conference real quick since he's here. All right. So this is going to be September 19th and 20th of course, September 2025. The Island of Misfit Toys is putting on a conference. It's going to be excellent. It's going to be actually like 3 different sections. Friday night, we're going to have a meet and greet. Saturday, we're going to have the conference, of course. And then Saturday night, we're going to have a ghost hunt. Are we down to 2 tickets or 4 tickets still? 2 or 4? I don't know.
Last I heard it was going to be 2. So.
Oh, boy. So if you're out there, we got 2 tickets and just 2 tickets left. So make sure you get those tickets for your favorite loved one and yourself for Christmas.
Now, remember, those are just for the ghost hunt. Conference tickets are still available. Okay.
Guys. Oh, yes. The meet and greet and the conference are still available. And my goodness, we have some great speakers lined up.
We do.
Of course, I can name a few. Not all, because we have a lot. There they all. Well, there they all are. There you go.
Yes,
we have Heather Mosier from, of course, Small Town Monsters. We have Frankie and Dan from Haunted Garage and Haunted Souls, which they're bringing a haunted car. I'm super excited about that. Yes, absolutely. I'm super excited. We have Mr. Greg Ogles, Dr. Dean Bertram, William Lunsford, Ronald Murphy, and Lady Anne Celine. And last but not least, Josh Herr from Malvern Manor. We are so excited about having all of these great people in one spot. And we have special guests coming. Special guests that are just showing up. We have Dana Stricker, who is a psychic medium and UFO experiencer. We have Ken Gerhardt. Everybody here should know who he is. And we have Brent Thomas from Paranormal Portal, who is going to be here. And we have another person. I don't have his name up here, but he is also a Bigfoot researcher. And he's coming. I can't remember his name. I want to say Familiant.
Mike Familiant.
Mike Familiant. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got him, and we've got Ryan Edwards as a special guest.
Ryan Edwards is a special guest.
I mean, that's a 23-year-old man.
dear friend of mine. And folks, he's just written his third book. 23 years old,
Right.
he's written his third book. And fantastic information. He's going to be there as a special guest. And also, we have Marilyn Bast, which is she's part of Beacon, Paranormal on Beacon TV. She's going to be going. She's a psychic medium. She's going to be doing a gallery reading, which tickets for that are still available. So it's a hell of a show. Hell of a show.
Exactly. It's jam packed for sure.
Yeah. Let's get him up here.
Hi, Bryan.
How you doing? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're good to go, brother. I got buddies of mine that are now. Of course, we have the Island of Misfit Toys has a group text, or as Monica refers to it, as a group hostage situation. Now
That's us.
I've got two guys that are freaking wrestling fans from day one, right?
Oh,
Yes.
God. They were so disappointed.
Yeah, you're not going to talk wrestling. Well, you got and no kidding. They said you got what is it? What is it? What is it? Oh crap! Man, that was a good setup, and I bombed it.
It's the jingle bells in your beard. It's throwing you off.
I guess they're too tight.
That could be.
But I got yelled at because I'm having Neil deGrasse Tyson of wrestling on the show,
Wow.
and we're not talking wrestling.
Wow.
That's the comment.
Yes.
That's the compliment you got earlier today.
And let me tell you, I was receiving hate text today.
Wow.
And
How
I'm
about
like,
that?
you guys.
So it runs the gamut.
Right. I said, it's Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast.
Right.
We're not talking wrestling. And they're like, what do you mean? And
But
I got
I
a few
do
cuss
have-
words.
But I'm going to satisfy their side of it too, because I do have a couple of questions for you, kind of coming into both areas.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But Bryan, why don't you tell, because you're in a kind of a whole new world here. You got your paranormal thing going on, but introduce yourself to our audience. Because I just did an interview with you on your show.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Well, I have a podcast. It's a podcast right now. It's called After Dark Radio. Even though it's a podcast, it's called After Dark Radio. But ironically, it is going to become a radio show on January 8th because the show will be moving to Sports Byline USA, which normally just does all sports. But I've been doing a show on Sports Byline since probably 2001 about wrestling. And I would say probably 2011, when I started the podcast, I talked to Sports Byline and I kind of mentioned, you guys want a paranormal radio show on this sports station. And at the time, it was kind of like, well, there's really nowhere it can fit. It's, this is sports and everything. But I kind of brought it up jokingly when I was doing the wrestling show a couple of weeks ago, actually about a month ago. And the station manager got a hold of me and he said, "Are you serious about this?" And at the time I was kind of joking, but then when he mentioned, "Are you serious?" It was like, "Yeah, I'm serious." And so it got set up, and now on January 8th, we're going to be doing After Dark Radio on Sports Byline. So it's going to be a live show, national radio. We'll do guests, we'll do open lines. I mean, the reason I do all of the wrestling stuff is because when I was young, there were two things in my life that I loved, and one of them was wrestling, and one of them was Art Bell's show, Coast to Coast AM. And so I wanted to be a radio host, and I wanted to be a wrestler. And the wrestling thing happened first. Somehow that was easier than doing a paranormal radio show in the late 90s. And so I started doing, I was a wrestler, and I also did a wrestling newsletter, and that eventually became a wrestling radio show and podcast. And that's pretty much my full-time job. But I had the opportunity in 2011 to just start the paranormal podcast, and I did it on the wrestling website. And I found, as you guys have both found, that a lot of people that are into wrestling are also into the paranormal and vice versa. So people love the
Yep.
show. And so it's worked out that now I get to do in 2025 the thing that I wanted to do in 1995, which is a paranormal radio show on the radio. So I'm very excited about it.
Congratulations, brother. Congratulations. You're going to knock it out of the park. No doubt about that. I mean, you've been knocking it out of the park for a while now.
Okay.
I hope so.
Well, I think you have. I think you have.
I'm just sitting here trying to figure out why wrestling and paranormal people fit together. I don't know. It's just,
Well, yeah, it's weird, but I mean, when you think about what pro wrestling is, it's like, what is it? It is a work. That's the professional. That's the term.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like everything about pro wrestling dates all the way back to the carnivals, the carnival days. And it's, bunch of carnies involved, less so now, but certainly when it first began. And when you think about things that, were attractions in the carnivals, I mean, you can go back to, the Minnesota Iceman was an attraction in the carnival. And you can go back further than that. They had, all of actually, there's a lot of terms in pro wrestling that are the same terms that we use in carnivals and also in cryptozoology, gaffs. What is a gaff? Well, you take the torso of a monkey and the body of a fish and you gaff it together and you've got some gimmick, which is another term used in wrestling, a gimmick. And so really they kind of, at least some of the zoological aspects of it. I mean, those really are things that, carnival promoters and carnies took advantage of, 100 years ago. And it was same thing they did with pro wrestling. It's, find a way to work the marks.
well, there you go. Now I know how it comes together. All right. I would have never gone that way, but now it makes sense now that you said it. I was like, okay.
Yeah, when we first got together, and somehow we got on the subject of Texarkana.
Yes.
And
what a coincidence.
I think I was telling you my family's originally from Texarkana.
Yes, they were from Texarkana.
That whole thing. And you said, well, that's funny that you mentioned that. And if y'all look on the thumbnail, there's a picture of a championship belt. It's his championship belt, and it's the Texarkana television title.
Yes, the ICW,
no
ICWA Texarkana television title.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you
What
mentioned
small
Texarkana,
world.
I was like, holy smokes, look at this. It's funny too, because like it's not just wrestling fans, but like a lot of wrestlers are very much into the paranormal, like way more than you would imagine. And like last week, I had a guest on the show. His name is TJP. And, we spent the whole interview talking about wrestling, obviously. I didn't know anything about his interest in the paranormal. But then I remembered that he had he does a gimmick that plays off his heritage. There's like a demon. And so he's got this mask and everything. So I asked him about it. And, we talked about it for a little while. And then, when the show ended, like off air, I was like, we should get you back on someday. And he goes, I want to come back on the paranormal podcast. Like he wants to do After Dark because he wants to talk about it. And, there are so many wrestlers that are just fascinated with all of this. I mean, you'd be very surprised at the crossover between paranormal and pro wrestling.
Well, I mean, that kind of dates back to the 70s when we had Andre the Giant playing Bigfoot.
Yeah, Andre the Giant played Bigfoot. Yep. And if you can even look at, they've got characters, in the early, I think it was the early 80s, there was a character that was like, they've had him all the way back, especially if you go to Mexican professional wrestling, Lucha Libre. El Santo is like the most famous wrestler, one of the most famous wrestlers of all time, actually. Like you think about Hulk Hogan here, and he's like a famous guy. Everybody knows his name. But in Mexico, if you mention the name El Santo, he's like a cultural figure. Like he's taught in the textbooks talk about El Santo. And, he did all of these movies, and they were sci-fi movies. It was like El Santo versus the zombies. El Santo. I mean, it dates back there, but also you had characters that, like, there were mummy characters in different territories. There was a character named Elegante, and they actually put him in like a Bigfoot type costume. He was, 7'3" or something. He was legitimately like a giant. And, they've had characters like that throughout the years playing off things like Bigfoot.
There was one character that I remember, and a lot of people don't remember this, but I think they called him Sasquatch or Yeti.
Yeah, there was a Yeti, Ron Reese. He was in World Championship Wrestling.
But they dressed him up. It looked like a mummy.
Yes, it was ridiculous.
What is up with that?
I can't explain that aspect of it, but yes, he was the Yeti, they called him.
Mhm.
But for some reason, he was wrapped up like a mummy in toilet paper.
Yeah.
Didn't get over very well.
No,
was a failure.
it made no sense. Everybody went, what?
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got we had the missing link.
The missing link,
which
exactly.
was one of my favorite wrestlers.
I once wrestled the son of the missing link.
Really?
Jumpin' Jason Sterling. Yeah, when I first started wrestling, his son was a wrestler. He didn't do a missing link gimmick. He was just like a young guy or whatever. But yeah, I did matches with the son of the missing link.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We actually have a listener and fellow podcaster that I don't know if he's going to jump in today. I hope he does. One of his professors, one of his high school teachers,
George Animal Steel.
George the Animal Steel.
Yep. Do you know that one time? Well, you don't know this, but I'm gonna tell you the story. I did the show, Wrestling Observer Live, and I don't know what we were talking about, but we must have mentioned something about 80s wrestling. And I didn't know this, but George the Animal Steel was a listener, and he called in. And, the producer, he gets in my ear and he goes, we got a guy. He says he's George the Animal. And I was like, what? And it was George Animal Steel. And he just called in as a caller and he was like, I'm George. And he just was, I think he was upset about something, but by the end we were friends. But yeah, George the Animal Steel. He was like a high school gym teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. And according to what I'm here, for what I've heard, just a peach of a guy.
Yeah, very nice guy, very smart guy, but he played
very intelligent,
a monster. Yeah,
but it's funny because the gimmick that he had going was just the opposite.
Exactly.
Turnbuckle eating,
covered in hair, the green tongue.
But so being it is, and I know you've got your own ghost stories. If
I do have a couple.
But before I get into those, I've got to ask you a question. And you kind of alluded to it earlier with the whole, you wouldn't believe how many wrestlers are into the paranormal. Do you have any memorable stories that some of these wrestlers have told you about their paranormal?
Well, I will say this. I do, but unfortunately I can't tell them because, one of the things in wrestling is you really don't want to talk about, who your buddy is with and sources and that sort of thing. I mean, there is somebody who I think would actually come on the air and talk about it. And I'm going to try and get that set up when we go on the radio. But, they're definitely, I mean, I can tell you about people that, I mean, they're into it enough that, they're finding places in the woods and they're investing in FLIRs and I mean, they're going all in to try to figure out, and it's like they'll search for, okay, well, I looked in my area, I looked on the BFRO side and there were actually sightings here 3 years ago. And, I've got a place right out there. And, so yeah, I mean, they're guys that are really into it. Most of them I would say are more, they're just interested like anything else.
Right.
They haven't necessarily had experiences, but there are definitely some out there that, I mean, they could probably go on about things that have happened to them.
Well, I tell you what, if you, and I know you're going to, when you talk to these guys, and if they really want to have an experience, you let me know and hook us up, and you're invited too, and I'll take you out in the field with me. My research area rarely disappoints. This young lady right here had her first Bigfoot sighting with me, standing side by side.
Really?
We saw it
Wow.
at the same time.
Yeah.
I went on
Yeah,
one BFRO expedition and nothing. Didn't see anything.
Yeah.
And we went way out in like the Cascades. I mean, we were up by Rainier, and then we were
Mhm.
way out there. And it was like 3 days. And there was one guy that he claimed he had seen something, but I think everybody was a little skeptical based on the particular guy. But I will say the one thing about that was really eye opening to me is we had like a whole group of us that were walking down kind of this path, and everyone's being super quiet, listening, and everything like that. And all of a sudden, this guy goes, "Oh my god!" And he's got his night vision, and he kind of points out to us, and I'm telling you, like maybe 25 feet away, there's a herd of 30 elk, and nobody heard anything walking down this path. They were like right there, 30 of them. And it's like, had there not been night vision, I mean, we
Right.
would have all quietly, trying to be as quiet as possible, just traipsed right past them. But of course, this guy had the night vision. He's like, oh my God, look at this. And that to me was like, okay, that's pretty interesting, because everybody always says, well, the woods are big, but people have been out in the woods and nothing's going to
Mhm.
go undetected. And it's like, dude, they're a bunch of Bigfoot. Like these people, this is the BFRO. These are Bigfoot people. And nobody had any idea there were elk 20 feet from us. A giant
Yeah.
herd, not like one elk. I mean, they're
Right.
everywhere, but they were
These are
completely-
1,800-pound animals.
Oh yeah, completely silent. We just we would have walked right past them like there was nothing there. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I think some people have presumptions about the woods, having never actually been out in the woods in the middle
Yes.
of nowhere at night.
Yes. Yes. Very much so. Very much so. And I can't
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard from non-believers or whatever that you hear the age-old statement. Well, I've been hunting in these woods for 50 years. I ain't never seen nothing. Oh, are you looking for them?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and then I saw another thing online. It was a guy that goes, people always talk about, all the wilderness and how, people have never been there. And he goes, well, first off, you're there. And second off, I don't believe that there's any stretch of wilderness in North America where somebody hasn't been. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe someone has been there. But I mean, I fly to and from Washington a lot. And, I have been out in the middle of nowhere with, a group once. But I mean, just flying over, when you look at how much wilderness is out there.
Yeah.
And, if we're talking about something that, and listen, I'll be honest, a lot of this stuff, I look at things from a pretty skeptical, like I want to see some proof of something. But
Oh, absolutely.
I think there is a decent chance that, there's something out there. I mean, and I fly over Washington and I look at all of that wilderness and it's like, that's a lot of woods. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a lot of woods. And yeah, some guy could hike out to one specific spot on one specific day. But I mean, I think about those elk. It's like,
Yep.
there's something out in those woods. I don't care that one guy was there for a day camping. You know what I'm saying? It's like, they're out of there, would be my guess. And so I don't buy that just because people have been in the woods, well, that rules out the possibility there's something in the woods that people have not seen.
Yeah, I think most people that are like that, they don't want to know, because if they found out that it would shatter their reality, and I think they're almost scared. They want to stay in their own little box. They don't want to know, because they would never go back out in the woods if they knew the truth, if they accepted it. But,
Right.
it's,
I think
you
too,
got
there's
stupid
also,
people like
there's
me.
woods and then there's the woods. You know what I mean? Like my
Yeah, I do.
daughter did outdoor preschool in this big, anyway, there's a lot of woods, but she ain't out in the woods. You know what I'm saying? There's the
In
woods,
the
and then
woods.
there's you're out in the woods. And I think, a lot of people, they may go here or there and it's a wooded area, but that ain't the woods.
No.
And if you've been out in the woods, like way out in the middle of nowhere in the woods, you are out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People that, you know, I love going out. My favorite thing that happens when I'm going out to a place is when my phone pops up, signal lost.
Oh yeah.
That's, and I'm like, all right, this is cool. Because most of the time when I'm out, if I can swing it, my phone stays in the truck,
Yeah. And
But
sometimes too, I mean, sometimes I've been out hiking and, I've hiked far enough in that I've lost service,
right.
but I'm also barely in the woods. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Yes.
didn't go that far and I lost service. And then you look at, okay, that's thousands of, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, you got millions of square miles of unexplored. I'll say this: that hasn't had a white man's foot on it.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, I'll go that route because
Mhm.
it's there's no there's no possible way that saying all the woods have been explored is like saying all the oceans have been explored.
Sure.
I mean, we know more about the moon than we do about our own oceans. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
But let's get over to. I want to talk about your experiences that you've had, your ghost experiences.
What's funny is if you look at like different paranormal, whether it's UFOs, Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster, like all of this stuff. I mean, the one that I think is the most likely possibility is Bigfoot. And I've never been a guy who's like into ghosts,
Right.
believing in ghosts and physical apparitions and that sort of thing. So it is ironic that the one thing that happened to me was a ghost. And it was so bizarre because it didn't just happen to me, but my wife was with me.
Oh, there you
So
go.
we were in Hawaii, and I think we were on the island of Kauai, and we went to this luau. And so Kauai is very, very small. You go to Kauai if you just want to get away from everything. It's not like going to Maui. And we were kind of a ways out at this luau. And so we go to the luau and then we start driving back to where we were staying. And we were kind of staying a little bit in the middle of nowhere too. And there was this, like, it was in the middle of the night and it was a windy road. And the thing with the road was there wasn't a ditch on either side. It was just like a really small, it might have even been a dirt road, to be honest with you. I can't even remember, but it was like, I mean, we were a ways out and there's this, it's a windy road and there's like, I mean, woods on both sides. Okay. And I'm driving down this road and we go around this bend and there's this dude on a bike, like right in the middle of the road. And I like slammed on the brakes and I was like, oh my God, what's this guy doing? And my wife, she like, reaches over and like, how someone tries to stop you from going through the windshield with one arm. She like goes this and
the mom moved.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden the guy's gone. And we both were like, where did that guy go? And we looked at each other and then like I stopped the car and there was like nowhere for this guy to go. Okay. There's not going in the woods. He was just gone. And like we turned around and we went back and we were like driving real slow. Like, where could this guy have gone? And there was nowhere. He was gone. And I remember it was so weird because it was a guy on a bike and I saw it and she saw it. And then it was just gone. And it was the weirdest thing that ever happened to me. And I have a friend who lives there and I called him afterwards or I texted him or something. I was like, I just had the weirdest thing happen. And he just goes, yeah, that happens all the time there. It's like a thing. There's just not necessarily a guy on a bike, but like in that area, he goes, there's just people see spirits all the time. It's not unusual at all. I'm not surprised. And it was just like, I don't believe in any of this stuff, but like that happened to me and my wife, both of us. If it had been just me or if it had just been just her, it's like, okay, maybe we missed something. But like both of us, a guy on a bike, you're just right there and he was gone, nowhere for him to go. It was completely bizarre. So that was like my one real holy smokes. I have no explanation for that. I've got a witness. I mean, all of it. It was just totally bizarre.
So you've interviewed a lot of people, and do you have any stories that stuck with you? Like somebody told you their story, and it's like you can't shake that one. It was like,
well, I mean, this is not even somebody that I interview, but it was a friend. This was the other thing, that this didn't happen directly to me. I mean, I'll explain it. So I teach jujitsu, and in 2011, I started teaching at this studio in Bothell, and at the time they were running in an Oddfellows lodge. It's this little building in the middle of Bothell where I live, and this building, like, it's well over 100 years old. I mean, and it looks it from the outside and the inside. And they got cheap rent, and so they had an upstairs and a downstairs, and they taught karate downstairs, and they matted the upstairs. And so I taught jujitsu 5 days a week upstairs in this old building, and it was like an Oddfellows lodge. So I mean, I don't remember anything directly happening to me, but I had multiple students that came up to me and they were like, I just want to tell you something. Something really, really weird just happened to me. And I was like, what? And like one guy, we warm up and we stretch or whatever. And he goes, I was sitting there stretching, and like I heard somebody walking up behind me, and they tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, there was nobody there. And he goes, I swear to God, somebody was walking, and and he didn't know anything about anything. Like, he wasn't a guy that was like, knew my interest in the paranormal or had heard any stories about this place. He goes, it was just so weird. Like, I heard steps and somebody tapped me, and I turned around and they were gone. And then there was a changing room, and many people had said, like, I've been in this room, and it's like, I'll hear things, or it'll get cold, and this was all in this building. And so, one day, me and a couple of the students, we were like, we didn't know what we were doing, but we thought, let's check this place out in the middle of the night. And so we did everything you would see on television. We got like, this equipment, this whatever, and EMF detectors, the whole 9 yards. And like, we did an investigation of this place, and we didn't really find anything, but like, there was one picture I took that had a weird orb-like thing in it that could have been anything. I don't know. And there was one room that like that EMF detector just would go crazy in that room, just sky high. And, nothing that I could say like, okay, for sure this is haunted or anything, but there were some weird things from that little so-called investigation we did. And, through the years, people would come up to me and they would just say, I just had the weirdest thing that happened here. Like, is this place haunted? And I was like, well, I don't know. Why are you asking me? But, funny you should mention, because Trino also, and then I tell him that story. And I mean, it was weird. And one other quick thing, we were kind of cleaning the place out one day, and I walked into this room, and I'd never been in this. It was like a door inside a room, and we'd never really been in it or whatever. And the door happened to be unlocked, and I open up this door and I go in, and there's just like junk everywhere, and then there's what appeared to be a coffin. And I was like, that's kind of weird. I even joked to my wife, I was like, that thing looks like a coffin. And I opened the coffin, and as God is my witness, there is a human skeleton in the coffin. And it was like, it had all the things on it. It was apparently used in these Oddfellows rituals over the years. They had an actual human skeleton that they used. And I remember I told the guy that owned the school about this, and I was like, is this even legal? Like, it wasn't, it did not appear to be a replica skeleton. It appeared to be like an actual skeleton, like, 100 years ago in the anatomy, they would have like the human skeleton. It was like that in a coffin. And I remember we like called the people that owned the place, and it was like really weird. And they just go, "Oh, just move it to the closet downstairs." Like, dead body in this building. So I don't know if he's a guy that was tapping on the shoulders or not, but I mean, that was very weird.
Well, everybody talks about the Masons or the Illuminati.
Yeah.
Look into the Odd Fellows.
Yeah,
That
I don't
is
know, man, what the Odd Fellows
pretty
were doing, but
creepy.
I mean, there was some weird stuff going on there.
Yeah. And what you found sounds about right.
Yeah.
That sounds about
Body.
right. So yeah, I can understand that. I can definitely understand that. I meant to ask you about when your wife and yourself, you saw that man on the bike. You
Yeah.
saw that person on a bike. Was that your wife's first paranormal
Oh, yeah.
experience or
Yeah, like neither of us, I mean, nothing. And then both of us at the exact same time, in the exact same place, saw the exact same thing that then vanished.
yeah, because I think investigating the paranormal is like watching the paint dry for a while.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you could go there 100 times and nothing happens, and then there's that one time, that
Yeah,
something
and it's
does
weird because I
happen.
think a lot of people that do investigate the paranormal, I mean, you are expecting to hopefully see something, right?
Right.
You go on a ghost hunting expedition and you're hoping that you'll see something. You go out looking for Bigfoot, you're hoping you're gonna nothing. We were coming back from a luau. The thought never entered our mind that, hey, maybe we'll see a ghost in this haunted place. It was just there. It was bizarre.
Well, I've heard that the
Mhm.
Hawaiian Islands are very haunted.
Oh yeah, that's what my buddy told me when I texted him. And that particular area too. He goes, that's like a hot spot.
Well, if I ever get over there, I know where I'm going.
Yeah, I'll try to direct you to that luau.
There you go. There you go.
I've been to a lot of the bigger places that everybody advertises, all this stuff that everybody talks about. Oh, it's so haunted, it's so haunted. And I've been, and then I'm like, eh,
Yeah.
a few things happen, nothing crazy. But then I've been to smaller places that people don't talk about. They're just like, hey, this place, you need to check it out. There's something weird going on over there. And it's been the most haunted thing I've ever been in. So, I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean,
really crazy
you
though
can
how
get
these
like,
things
haunted Washington books, weird Washington books, and I'll always look through them and I'll say, is this place there? Like, it's got to be there, right? Never. It's never mentioned. But they'll mention all of these other places that are allegedly haunted, and it is crazy. It's like that's by far the most haunted place I've ever been. It's the only place I've ever been where there's like multiple reports of really weird things happening, but nope, no mention of it whatsoever.
It's when you were telling us about the guy on the biker, guy on the biker, the guy
guy
on
on
the
the
bike.
biker.
The biker on the bike.
It's
Yeah,
Friday.
there you go. Brandi had a similar experience driving in her car.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not unusual for us to hear about that.
What did you see?
Well, I was driving to work and I go to work very early in the morning and I live in a smaller town. So, and I live actually way outside of town. So I was driving in town to get to my job and I turned a corner and I saw somebody like a black shadow and it was walking up towards the street light, towards the road. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm thinking that somebody that shouldn't be out walking in the middle of the night is
Yeah.
that they may be under the influence. So I'm like, okay, I better watch them. So I look back at the road to make sure I'm staying on the road. I look back and the shadow figure is absolutely gone. There's nowhere for it to go. There's nothing out there and the land was flat. It couldn't have laid down. It couldn't have done anything
Yeah.
without me seeing it because it was just that quick of a glance. Well, right after that, then I started smelling like super hot burnt oil and I smelled that for like a quarter of a mile and then it quit and then it was gone.
Yeah.
And then I've had issues. Then I've had issues ever since. So
It's funny that you mentioned driving. Oh, go ahead.
Mhm. I was like, you can experience these things just about anywhere.
Yeah, you mentioned driving, and it reminded me of another thing that I don't think I've ever told anyone this story before, but it was like something that happened to me when I was young, and it was really weird, but it was like I just convinced myself that it was like it must have been something else or whatever. But I remember the story now. I was driving and this thing ran out in front of my car, okay? And it looked like, if you guys have seen a river otter, it kind of had that sort of body, like really short legs, and it had, the torso and then kind of like a long tail, and it kind of scurried across the road. It looked just like an otter, but like its head. You ever seen like the picture of the Dover demon?
Yeah.
It's got
Yes.
like the skinny body and this gigantic peanut-like head. This thing
Yes.
had like a giant. I just remember it just really fast ran across the road, and it was like an otter body and this enormous head. And it just boom went across, and I was like, oh my. I was like scared half to death. And your heart like goes crazy and you get all freaked out. And I just like drove as fast as I could out of there. And then, after a while, you kind of start like, I mean, it had to be like a dog or something. You start convincing yourself because you didn't see the Dover demon in Bothell.
Right.
But I mean, I remember it was just like so bizarre because I know what I saw. But then I was like determined to convince myself that I didn't see that. I must have seen something else or whatever. But I never could figure out, like, how could I have, like, why would my brain have done that? Just because I remember the head was like freaking enormous, like almost like too big to fit the body. It was just this giant head and and it ran across the road. And yeah, that happened to me probably when I was, late teens. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. But I mean, it was just so weird. I just convinced myself that it must have been something else and kind of moved on with my life. But anytime I think about it, I remember exactly what it looked like. It was totally bizarre.
Well, see, and that happened. That's a lot of people that have these strange experiences, these, for lack of a better term, a cryptid experience like that or something. That's what you go through. That's how you try to process it because, am I crazy? Did I see a werewolf? Did I see this? Did I see that? You start trying to debunk it in your mind and go, okay, well, it was just this.
Yeah. Well, the stories
Yeah,
that always. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like to kind of call that like the post-traumatic paranormal disorder.
Yeah.
Because you see it and then you keep running it through your head. And sometimes these stick with you for life. They just don't go away. Just that one memory will just stick with you because you can't, your brain can't function. Like, it's like, this is not normal. This is nothing that I know of that exists. I can't process it. So yeah, I get that point. And there's a lot of things that happen like that. I'm still doing that to this day on things that may have happened to me when I was a teenager, even as a small child. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, the things that really fascinate me, like I read a lot of, different paranormal stories and that sort of thing. And, the story, I saw this thing, I took a picture, whatever. I mean, those are cool and all, but the ones that really fascinate me are when somebody tells a story and it's ridiculous. It's like absolutely ridiculous. I was reading a couple of weeks ago about, I think it was a Sandown clown. I don't know if you've heard that story, but it was this entity that this took place in like the UK or something. But I was just reading about it, and he's like some spaceman type, and he, like, the way it was described, it was like completely preposterous. And those are the ones that always get me, because it's like, okay, if I'm going to make up a story about something that I saw a big hairy man in the woods. Right. I saw, a gray alien, whatever the things are that you always hear reported. But these stories are like so ridiculous that it's like, why would I make that story up? Right. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, you hear the stories of like, I saw a little gnome. Like, people tell these stories. I saw a little gnome, and he had a red gnome hat on, and he was a tiny little man, and he ran and he jumped into a tiny little car. It's like, why would you make that story up? Like, nobody is going to believe that you saw a little gnome with a little gnome hat jump in a little gnome car and drive off. Like, no one's going to believe that, but they swear this happened. And those are the ones to me that are always like, I don't know what's going on, dude, but who would make that up? Like, something happened. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they saw a little gnome in a car. Maybe they just had a stroke or something, but like, it's so bizarre that to me, it's not something that you would make up if you wanted people to believe that you had an experience. It's too ridiculous.
Yeah.
I hear that. Well, you know,
We've had talks about that though, Tex, haven't
Yeah.
we? That
Yeah.
something did happen to those people. They actually saw something. Now, whether they saw it with their eyes or inside their head, that's a different story.
Sure.
You know, with vivid dreams or things like that. I mean, you and to them, they're telling the truth, you know. I mean, and we don't know for sure.
well,
But
Monica
we've
had a
heard
sighting.
stories of go ahead.
Monica had a sighting just like he's explaining.
Yeah. Not
You
with a
know?
car, but not driving off. But
Well, what happened? I got to hear the story now.
Well, she saw a gnome.
yeah, basically
I mean,
part of the faith. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, and that's what we've been discussing here for quite a while.
hmm
Is all these things that maybe we're seeing and people are seeing, and we're labeling it these different, you know, the rake and the, you know, Bigfoot and
Right.
Dogman
Skinwalkers.
and you know all
Skinwalkers.
this,
Yeah. The whole 9 yards. Yeah.
all this stuff. Maybe we just relabeled what hundreds of years ago they called the Fae.
Well, sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You
Jacques Vallée.
Yeah.
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 You know, it's funny
Donnie
that I
Cho
just
says,
remembered another story.
Yeah, Donnie
All
Cho
of these are
says
coming back to
thank
me
you so
now.
much for the donation. He says Brian's rant on the world's worst episode of Raw was absolute poetry.
God, which one was that? That could have been any of about a dozen shows in 2019. No, but I remembered another story. And this is another example. It ties all of this together. I was a little kid, and I remember being in my room, and I woke up, and I looked over on like the little table next to my bed or whatever, and there was a little clown there, and he was like this big, and he was like in a clown outfit, and he had like, you know, the hat and the polka dots and whatever. And I remember I looked at him and he looked at me, and then like he jumped and he landed on me, and I freaked out and I woke up. I'm screaming, and my parents come in, and
Yes.
they're like, "Oh, it was a nightmare! It was a nightmare!" And I remember saying like, he left me stuffies. He left me stuffies, and like we looked in my bed, and there's like apparently I had a teddy bear that I'd like torn apart or something, and all the stuffing was out.
Mhm.
And I was saying that these were the stuffies. And of course, you know, you get convinced. This is another one I'd forgotten for probably 40 years now. But, you know, you get convinced, okay, I just had a horrible nightmare, which probably was a horrible nightmare. But, you know,
Mhm.
same thing we were talking about with people seeing like little clowns. It was like,
Yes.
if it were a nightmare, it was the first one I ever had that like, it felt like it was real. You know, everybody has
Yes.
nightmares, and you wake up, and as soon as you wake up, you're like, oh my God, that was like, you know, what a nightmare. But like that was the first one where, you know, I didn't
That
think it was a
you thought
nightmare.
it was
I thought it
real.
actually happened. Yeah.
Right. Right. You know, because you know, I joke about it all the time. It's kind of like when ladies, I know you're going to hate me for this, but I'm going to tell you. When you go to sleep at night and then you dream about your spouse or, you know, your significant other or somebody cheating on you, and then you wake up mad, it's kind of like that.
Been on the other
It
side of
didn't
that
happen, but you're still mad about it.
Still angry about
all
it.
day. What's up with that?
You're still mad about it. So I mean, I kind of like, you know, it's kind of like that. Something happened, but you know, it's like, do you realize that it was a dream or maybe not? You could have been right in there between, you know, your REM and then light sleep. You know, and you're not really sleeping. Maybe it's just kind of like you're just drifting, and then it feels
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, I've had the
I see
deal where
that.
you wake up and you're like sleep paralysis. I haven't had it in many years, but when I was younger, I had it regularly. And like
Tell me about that.
yeah, you wake up and like you can't move. And the thing that I remember about it was like my eyes would be like just barely open. And so like you feel like you're trying to look around and you're trying to open your eyes, but you can't move. And you're like, you're trying so hard to move, and you're frozen. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, your whole body moves. And then you're up and it's just like, God, I don't want to go back to sleep. That sucked. But I had that
Yes.
happen to me when I was young. That happened many times, but I don't think it's happened in probably 20 years. But I remember that feeling of when all of a sudden it's like your eyes are like, I can't even do what they do, but you can't open them, but they're open just enough that you can see that like you're alive and awake, and it's horrible, that paralysis.
Oh yeah. See, now I've never had I've never had the paralysis, but I do have what's called the hypnic jerk. It's like when you're going to sleep and then, you just jerk yourself awake for no apparent reason, and it feels like actually somebody pushed you.
Yeah.
Like somebody shook you. Yeah.
Well, my dad
that's
had
very
one
strange
where,
feeling.
my dad had the experience where he
almost feels
felt
like an electric
somebody,
shock.
he felt someone come into the room and sit on him. And he was like struggling, and this thing was just sitting on him, and finally, like, he remembers shoving it off, and you hear it hit the ground, and he got out of there, and there was nothing there. But that happened in the house that he grew up in Blackfoot, Idaho. They had like a cellar, I think it was, and man, nobody wanted to go down there. It looked creepy, and apparently it was.
But and that's a story we've heard over and over and over again. Combined with the sleep paralysis, there's something holding them down. There's something coming up the foot of the bed. There's something sitting on them, or sometimes we hear, it had its hands around their throat, all kinds of weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to determine that, because it's like Brandi was saying, when you get to that point where you're in between states of sleep, what's real, what's not, young kids can't, to a certain age, they can't determine. It's like you were saying, when you were young, you couldn't really determine what was dreaming, what was real.
Yeah.
That's not, that rationale is not there yet. And I think it's when you get in that in between state, like we're talking about, we still have that. You can't tell the difference. It's almost exactly like you were talking about, and Brandi was talking about, those dreams that or nightmares, whatever you want to call them, that you wake up and they were so real, so vivid, that you have to process the emotions that came along with that.
Yes.
It takes hours sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, really, with the clown one, I mean, when I really think about it, it's like, that's probably the only dream in my life where even after a few minutes, it was like, I would not accept that was a dream. Like any other dream, I mean, you wake up and it's either immediate or, like you said, you kind of can't go to sleep for a little while, but then you realize what happened and you go to sleep or whatever. But like, that was the one where, they're telling me it's a dream. And it was just like, it was so real. And then I had the stuffing in my bed. And I remember saying, you left me stuffies, and it's like right there. And it's just like, God, what in the world happened? That was so horrifying.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here, but they were telling you that they rationalized this by telling you tore the stuffing out of your bear.
I don't know. I don't even remember that aspect of it. I just remember it was in the bed. They were telling me that it was a dream because I was like freaking out. And obviously, push came to shove, they're going to tell me it's a dream and not that there's a angry clown in my room that's 6 inches tall. But yeah,
I find it's really the part that I find really strange about this is that he left me stuffies, and that stuff was in your bed. Your bear was torn apart.
And that's a pretty little kid.
You were how old?
Bear apart.
Like, you were how old?
I was pretty young. I was probably
that takes quite a bit of strength. I mean, I'm not saying you couldn't do it at that age, especially with the adrenaline dump. I mean, but that I don't know. That strikes me as odd.
It was definitely odd.
I mean, I guess you could call it something about like almost like sleepwalking, but never getting out of the bed if he was actually doing something in his sleep and not realizing what he was doing. I mean,
Yeah, but
they could probably
man,
blame it on that, but I don't think a young boy would be tearing up stuff in his sleep. I
It would be a
just
very
don't.
unusual thing that I never did before or since.
Right.
right.
That's what and then have a clown doll involved. Now, do I think that objects can have attachments? Yes, they can.
But I
Oh,
never
Yes, they
had a
God.
clown
can.
doll. There was no clown doll.
There was no clown doll.
No, there was no clown doll. The clown I saw
Oh,
was not a doll.
oh,
The clown I saw was just a little tiny clown. I never had a
okay.
clown.
I think there was an entity there. That's
Hmm. Because why would
that's
you
my
be
personal
dreaming
opinion.
of that? Or
Yeah.
You know, it's funny also is I just thought about this. My mother-in-law, I think she probably got it when they went on a trip to France, but she brought back a little doll to give to my daughter that actually looked almost identical to the clown I remember from that experience.
Oh, that's weird.
I wish I could find the thing because, like, you take one look at it and you go, "Wow."
I was gonna say, did you tell her no, thank you?
No, I
Thanks.
remember looking at it going, "What is
Thanks.
this?" Like,
I'd have
No
taken
to
it
the
outside
clown
and
doll
buried it.
house.
I'd have buried it.
but hey, it's been
Absolutely.
here and there's been nothing with it, so you know.
That is so strange.
It is pretty weird. It is pretty weird that she managed to, and I've never seen another doll like it either, which is, the more I think about this, the weirder the whole thing is. There's this little doll, we called him Grimaldi for some reason. I don't know if someone's
Yeah.
going to tell me that that's also weird, but like he was a little doll we called Grimaldi. And it's like, I've never seen one before or since that looked like this. And she just brought it back like, oh, I got a doll for Paisley. And I looked and it was like, oh my God, that's that thing. But I mean, I didn't tell her to get rid of it or anything. I just, Paisley loved the doll and it's been here the whole
You're
time
like,
and nothing
here.
weird's happened.
Yeah, I'm very careful about dolls, actually. Very, and it all stems from, of course, Robert the doll and Annabelle and
Yeah.
all of it. I'm very careful. Very
You know
careful.
what's funny about that is like, I don't believe in haunted dolls at all, but it is one of those things that I'm not going to take my chances. You know what I'm saying?
That's it.
Yeah.
That is
Like,
it.
I don't actually believe anything's happened, but in the rare off chance that maybe it's possible, I'm not going to mess with it.
I'm just
Absolutely.
covering my bases and I'm not going there, right?
Yes. Just in case.
No,
Gotta
no.
be prudent.
Right,
So
right.
I want to get. Oh, go ahead, Brandi.
No, I was okay. You're good. Go ahead.
So I was going to get your opinion because I know you like I said you've interviewed a lot of people, took their stories and all this kind of stuff. So, what do you think about? I mean, the whole orb thing, because
yeah.
we caught an orb on. It's one of the strangest things that I've ever seen, and Brandi was there, and two more people were there with us. We saw this thing only on thermal. We couldn't see it with our naked eye. But when a lot of people talk about orbs and everything, what do you have any opinion on that kind of stuff? Or
I don't really, I've never really looked into orbs, so to speak, but I do know that you are not the only person that I've heard say that they have seen an orb, but they've only seen it on the FLIR or the night vision. And I mean, just the way that I'm built, I mean, I would not discount that happened. My natural inclination would be to say there's probably some natural electrical or I don't know what, but I would lean towards that over, you saw a spirit. But I haven't looked into it enough to,
I would love to agree with you.
Yes.
But the
What do
way
you think
this
it was?
thing, I don't know. I don't have a clue what it was. But to only see something on thermal that was about the size of I think it was probably about the size of a cantaloupe, something like that. Softball cantaloupe, but But to watch this thing like we did, and we watched it for minutes. I mean, minutes, and there was 4 of us handing the thermal back and forth watching this thing.
Because we could only see it through thermal. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a very, very hot signature. And it undulated like the bubble in a lava lamp. And it was hovering about what, foot off the ground, Brandi?
Yeah.
And when we're watching this thing, and it was staying a certain distance away from us, just kind of hovering around. And I said, well, let's see what happens. And I walked towards it, and it moved away from me. And then when I backed up, it kept the same distance and came back.
Yeah.
It moved with intelligence, and we tried to debunk it. We filmed like rabbits, because rabbits don't always hop; they'll crawl. Okay, and I thought, well, maybe, and so we did an experiment. We had those filmed, and it's nothing. I mean, nothing like it, because I mean, rabbits don't hover a foot off the ground.
No.
Well,
No.
I can tell you this. I don't know what they are, but I don't doubt that there is something, because
Right.
my father was born in Mexico, and his father was born in 1911, and I'm pretty sure that his father said this was either his mother or his grandmother. So this was pre-flight by quite a long time.
Right.
And they told the story of they lived in an area where there were kind of hilly areas, so it would kind of go like this. So if you were, you have to walk up and down the hill or whatever, and they would see these lights. You'd presume they were from a carriage or whatever, or lantern, but the lights wouldn't like go down the hill and come up the hill and go down the hill and up the hill. The lights would just keep going straight across all of the hills. And they called them witches. That was what they referred to them as. These were the witches. And they were balls of light that just straight across these hilly areas, not up and down, just they would go straight across. And I remember that story, and it sounds like essentially the same thing. I don't know what they are, but people see them everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got, I mean, a friend of ours' documentary is fixing to come out, and they've got orbs caught on camera, I mean, and it's like, Brandi was there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen that thing that we saw on thermal, and another thing that I saw by myself, and then somebody else saw the same thing that I did at the same location, but at a different time when I was with them.
Yeah.
But this thing that I saw was, it was really, really small, but it was really, really intense. It's almost like a laser pointer. But the problem was, and I thought it was like an airplane I was looking through a tree line, and I thought it was like an airplane on the horizon, you know? But when I got up to investigate it and it went off, the problem was that it was between me and a tree.
Well, that doesn't make sense.
But I know you got to go. You're a busy man. So
I actually have to go teach jujitsu, but not in the same building. We have since moved out.
Well, Bryan, I do want to have you back and talk about wrestling sometime.
Sure.
We'll do that over on my show, on my channel. And, but I really want to appreciate you. I appreciate you coming up, and it's been a hoot, brother.
Yeah, man, I'd love to come on anytime. I could talk wrestling, or I'd really love to talk more Bigfoot with you.
We can do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love to have both of you guys actually on the show when it moves to Byline, because I think it'll be a pretty fun thing. So
well, you got the number, man.
Sounds like
you get an opening, you let me know, and
we'll get there.
Yes, I think I'm booked. I think I'm booked through March, but after that, we'll get it going.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, yeah. Anytime you want me, just let me know. We'll hook something up.
Sounds fantastic. I appreciate it, brother.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You
Bye.
be safe, man.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so as we were talking about seeing that thing, I
Right.
don't know if you heard when we went to Emmaus Village, and this is that new location that's opening up, and it hadn't ever been hunted by the public or pretty much but the owners at that point, because it has been not recently acquired, but it's being acquired piece by piece. This whole
Right.
entire thing, which was really cool. And we were in the downstairs. It's not the basement. It was in a downstairs room, like in it's like stone. There's stone walls and things like that. And it was cold. And I'm telling you, it was so cold outside. I was shaking just all night.
Right.
I was happy, but I was shaking. And when I'm standing there, and we're all in this room, and I notice a bright ball just kind of shoot from the floor up. And I noticed that it kind of had its own light source. And I'm thinking, that can't be a bug. It's too cold. There's no
Right.
there's no bugs. It's 30 something degrees outside. It's like maybe 38 inside. It's not, it's not a bug. So I wanted to show this real quick. Let me pull it out of here. So I did have my body cam on, which
Oh,
I do occasionally. I take the body cam, and I'll tell you why it's only occasionally. But I had it on, so I'm like, okay. So I went and I reviewed the footage, and sure enough, you can see it plain as day in the night vision. It's just like a big ball of light that just shot up, but I saw it with my own eyes. I
right.
didn't see it through a thermal or anything like that. I saw it with my own eyes. It illuminated by itself. And the reason why I don't wear body cams a whole lot is because I wear the body cam right up front here. And when I hear something or see something, I'll turn my head, but not my body. So I may see it, but I'll never catch it on my camera. So I wear it every once in a while, but not a whole lot. I miss a lot of stuff with that thing. So that's why I
Well,
need to get something for my head, I guess.
yeah, wear it on your head.
Yeah. This is a little big to wear on my head. I think if I got a GoPro or something with night vision,
Yeah.
that would be better. This is a little big to wear on my head.
So now,
I think
see,
that would work out
anybody out
better.
there that wants to buy Brandi a Christmas present, you know what to get her. Get her a GoPro she can wear on her head. There you go.
Yeah, GoPro with night vision. Yes, I would like one of those, please. And while you're at it, I'll take the winning lotto numbers. Okay.
Yeah. Oh man, I tell you what, Brian's a great guy, and
Yes,
that was cool. He invited us on his show. That's gonna be cool.
that will be cool. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's really interested in the whole Bigfoot phenomenon, and
Right?
he hasn't had an experience or anything like that, but he wants to learn all he can about it. And I'm going
Well,
to talk him into going out. I'm going to talk him to going out in the woods with us one of these days.
well, that was the whole thing with a lot of people. We have researchers out there,
Yeah,
and I mean hardcore researchers that have never had an experience
yeah,
ever and are
yeah,
still doing it.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's a passion. You
It
know,
is. Sometimes it's an obsession.
right, right. I mean, I got lucky. You got lucky. I mean, that's what I call it,
Well,
luck.
that sounded wrong.
Well, yeah, that did sound wrong, didn't it? I don't even know how to rephrase that now. You've got
No, just leave it alone. Let it
just
die
leave
on the
that alone.
vine.
Okay, everybody,
Let it
PG
die on the
13.
vine.
It's PG 13.
Right.
Right. I could have said that a million different ways, and I still don't think it would have came out right.
Oh Lord.
That's what
Oh,
you get when your mind's in the gutter.
it's like, well, get your mind out of the gutter so mine can float by.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Man, can you believe it is like a few days till Christmas?
I know.
It's like this
I
year's
know.
almost It's gone. Like, where the
It
hell
is
did it go?
gone. I don't know. But you know what's even weirder? It's very quiet around my house right now. It, it's not normal because usually I'll have knocks or I can hear
Right.
walking or somebody's playing in the cabinets out in the kitchen. I got something going on all the time. It's pretty
Yeah.
quiet.
Hey,
So
real
I'm wondering
quick.
if they're rested up.
Yeah, maybe. Real
And
quick, I want to say thank you to Sinfully Wicked. She
yes,
gifted 5 new. What do y'all call
booze.
yourself? Booze or what do y'all?
Yeah, I just call them all my booze. They're all
Yeah.
my booze.
I mean, maybe they're honorary blondes.
Maybe.
And Donny Cho, thank you so much, brother. We'll talk wrestling with him. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, it could be if he wants to talk Bigfoot. I'll have to come on. I'm just
Oh
saying.
yeah, we'll get him on the porch and talk about Bigfoot, and then we'll have a wrestling show somewhere down the road. What I'd like to talk to him about really is these some of these wrestling deaths and stuff that's happened. I mean, it's because he's got a lot of inside track on that stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and there was probably some paranormal to do with that. He's saying that a lot of wrestlers have, I would call them paranormal issues.
Yeah.
And that could be a lot. I mean, have I heard things talk to me? Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, things talk to me. I hear voices. Yes, I do. I'm not crazy, but I do hear them. And I'm wondering, right? And I'm wondering if some of them, because, sorry, I'm getting choked up here. Right. I'm wondering if some of them, because of the high profile thing that they were doing as wrestlers, you know what I mean?
Right.
That the show was always on, whether if they're out in public, even on their own, the show was always still going. They always had to keep that persona. That if that might have not brought on some attachments, other things, that could have been tormenting some of them.
Yeah, could be.
Questions. I got questions. I don't know if he's ready for all that deep thought yet.
I think it.
Yeah.
Was, I thought it was interesting that it's even that kind of shows you what the thing that he said about I really can't discuss that because a lot of them don't want to go public with it. Okay,
right.
you're in. You wouldn't think that world would have the same stigma stuck to it. But evidently it does. Well,
like I said earlier, it's post-traumatic paranormal disorder.
Yeah, right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's PTPD. That's what it is. Because like we've talked about it before, where some people do have these experiences, and they won't talk about them. They don't know how to process it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's super hard. It's very, very hard on people to come out and say those things to people out loud. You know what I mean? Like they have to say it out loud, and they don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's almost like once you take that next step and it's like you say it out
once
loud.
You open I'm starting to lose my voice.
Pandora's box is what she's trying to say.
Yes, that is it. I am so sorry. I'm losing my voice. It has been a very long week. I've been talking all week. Can you imagine that?
Well,
Anyway,
I'll tell you what. Why don't we do this? Why don't we let you go to bed? Get some rest your voice.
That'd be all right with me.
All right. Well, we're going to call it a night, folks. The plan is I'm going to be on Joe Breezy's show tonight. So we will see if I got to see if I've got anything going on. I was being summoned as we were talking.
You were being summoned. Yes.
I was being summoned. So I got to go see what's going on.
Right.
Because we got, like I said, the whole family coming in tomorrow. So we're going to get ready for that.
Right.
But I just want to later.
Yeah, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and everything, because it'll be the last time we'll see you on Blondes until after Christmas. Yep. And be safe out there and safe travels if you're traveling.
Yep. And we got a good show for them Monday.
Oh my goodness. On Monday, everybody, you've got to tune into Texas Front Porch. We're going to have Mr. Greg Ogles and Mr. Adam Davies on the same show.
Yeah.
And if you've never hung out with those two or been around those two, it's Forrest Gump, people. It's a box of chocolates.
It is. It's a good time, folks. It's a good time. It's going to be a very moist show.
It is at 8 p.m. Central on Texas Front Porch. So just tune in, or just go on over there. If you haven't subscribed, hit that icon bell, and so you'll get notified. But it is at 8 p.m. Central.
So Merry Christmas, everybody. And don't forget, there's like 2 tickets left to the ghost hunt. Get them while you can.
Yeah, and get them other tickets too. Not that there's no hurry, but secure your spot. We have VIP seating still left. Make sure you secure your spot.
Yep. All right, guys. Merry Christmas. Y'all have a good
Merry
evening.
Christmas.
Okay.